Welcome to the third in a series of Beyond the Campus Alumni Stories. We are really excited at AWA to be able to share some of the experiences of just some of our alumni who have gone on to do really interesting and creative and wonderful things. Today's is really special because we have two of our alumni here, and we get to hear from two alumni who are from two very different programs and how they found each other, how they designed their thinking around an incredible project, how they thought about developing, how long it took, and so many other things. But this series gives us an opportunity to acknowledge some of the things that alumni do when they leave our doors. We sometimes forget that they do incredible things. And today we get to hear from Gayana and Elma, who have done, not only have written and produced this book in multiple languages, but are thinking about some other incredible projects. And we get to hear about how they got to this point and what part of their AUA experience helped them think about the different things that they could do when they leave our doors. These are two alumni that are here today, but there were some other alumni and AUA connected people who were involved in this project. So Haylene Alexandrian, who is a graduate of the Certificate in Translation, translated the book from Okay, I knew it was into Eastern Armenian. I wasn't sure where she started. She translated into Eastern Armenian. We also have the mother of two of our students who helped copyright it, and that was, I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, Diduhi Nazaretian. And where is Shavik? And Shali Gadzuni was the incredible copywriter of the Western Armenian text. And I think there was very little to work on after that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I assume that was the case. So we're excited to be able to do this once again this month. Our next one for the academic year is going to be in early May, and Rudy is going to tell us a little bit more about that. And then we're going to restart next year with some additional incredible stories. So I'd like to welcome Huri Gatarian, who knows Gayana and Elma very well, and who's helped them in so many different ways to both introduce the two of them and introduce some of the guests that we have on Zoom with us today to share some of their interactions with Gayana and Elma.
Thank you, Shavika. Really what pleasure it is being here today. On Zoom, you may not be seeing her, but she's seeing us and all of you, is Dr. Melissa Bilal, and I will be talking a little bit more about her as well. She's joining us, and yeah, about that in a little while, but a couple of words from me first. And I really have had this privilege of doing opening remarks twice now for Gayana and Elma and for Armenian Wonderwomen. The first one was on March 21st, the first day of spring, and when there was another separate book launch held, and what an emotional day that was. And obviously now as well, when we asked Gayana and Elma to come here today and join our community, and to talk about their travails, their process, and long journey of 4 years to be here. And yes, you did hear right. 4 years of germinations, seedlings, and blossomings. 4 years of very hard work and serious research. 4 years of toil and trouble with unending rewrites and edits. And mine, Dr. Melissa Bilal's job was one of midwifery in the feminist research sense of the word, and a role that we both enjoyed so much. Every Saturday morning of at least 2, if not more, of those 4 years was spent on long writing workshops on Zoom from Yerevan to Los Angeles, with always ungodly hours late into the night for Melissa. when the four of us would pore over minute details of texts, research, ideas, illustrations, and never-ending questions. And those of you who have been my and Melissa's students know what those never-ending questions look like. And in a little bit, Elma and Gayane are going to tell you more about their journey. But let me comment very briefly here about my experience of working with them. And I know I'm also speaking on Melissa's behalf when I say this. Being on this journey together with them taught me and taught us to understand feminist sisterhood in a new light. Oftentimes with our conversations with them, we forgot how young they both still are. We admire their commitment and their strength of conviction. We love how they channel their righteous rage into challenging the falsehoods and stereotypes we witness every day in our society with such poise. In the preface of the book, Gayane and Elma talk about how this work was both a labor of love and also the result of deep frustrations and anger. Their response to the glaring absence of women from textbooks to the public arena in this country is by starting up a conversation with the younger generation on women presences, both historical and contemporary. We live in difficult times, not only here but everywhere. Ahead of March 8 this year, the UN Secretary General announced that at this pace, we need another 300 years. You heard me right. 300 years to get to real gender equality. We are witnessing a backlash over rights everywhere, tragically, with, quote, progress won over decades vanishing before our eyes, end of quote. Gayane and Elma dedicate their book to those who are willing to change, to imagine the impossible, to follow their dream, to live in equality, justice, and freedom. Let me also read the Western Armenian of this dedication that sounds so beautiful in Sharik Shahimyan Arzruni's translation. Anons, որոնք գամքը ունին փոխվելու, ընկերային հասարակական պատնեշներ են անթին մտածելու, իրենց երազանքներու ջամփով երթալու եւ ապրելու հավասարության, արդարության եւ ազատության մեջ. And so, in these troubled and troubling times, this book, the work done on it, is more than a ray of hope. It is a political act. It is imagining, dreaming, and investing in a better possibility. And I, for one, am both grateful for and inspired by Gayane's and Elma's work. I'm not going into their official bios, they'll tell you more about it and you've read that. So I'm just going to pass over to Gayane and Elma now. And I think I also pressed something here that got this up, so yeah. There you go.
Hi everyone, thank you for choosing to spend your Thursday evening with us. It's truly a pleasure to be back at Daeway, which I personally never left. After studying here, I had the pleasure to TA for Dr. Huriga Tarian, and I think she's a bit biased in her introduction, so now you know why. It's a pleasure for Emma and I to share a snippet of our work with you. As Hurik mentioned, it's a 4 years of journey. We try to bring it together as much as we can and share some of the highlights with you. And we want to start from the very, very beginning of why we decided to write this book in the first place. I'm very happy that Mrs. Titiza came here just at this second because as I said it 4 years ago, I'll say it now, I was 21 years old when I first heard about Diana Gunn. It was her journalism course that taught me about her, and finding out about Diana Gunn sort of brought up the question of who else is there that we don't know about. who else, what other women are there that are part of our history that have done so much for us and that we don't know about? And that question wasn't the one that I asked myself, it's a collective questions that that our group of friends was asking itself over and over again. We came to realize that Janavka is not the only one. There are so many women out there that we don't know about. That sort of started the journey of writing this book. One of the reasons was lack of representation. There is almost no, and I say almost no, with the almost referring to Sipa Kaputikan being the only woman in our literature books. And I won't even start on our history textbooks because as the third point says, there is a certain lack of appropriate presentation of women in history books. So you see, you can probably count all the names in your hands and it will be someone getting married for a political reason or someone having a child or this or that. So there is a certain inappropriate representation and not relevant, let me say, a representation of women. There is also the issue of the cultural scene, right? We don't see a lot of streets named after women, and very interestingly, one of the few streets, I believe now 4th street named after a woman in Yerevan is the street right behind us, Sose Street. There is Abelia Science Street, and very recently there was an Anna Teravatikan Street in Arabgir, and I believe there is a 4th one that I'm Silva Kaputikan, right? Of course, Silva Kaputikan. So and outside the streets, we also have the issue of statues, museums, all these things that sort of ingrain in your head of like, okay, these are people we should know about. These are names that we should know. In case of women, those things are absent. And this is something that we've talked about again and again and again, and we came to realize that there could be 3 potential reasons why this is the case. A, we just don't know the women. We don't know them, and we assume that they don't exist. The second reason is, we know there are some women, but we choose to ignore them. We just think, okay, just they're there, it's not important. The third reason, which makes us very, very angry, is that we know who these women are, we know they exist, but we do not think that they're on the same level as some of the men that are part of our history and part of our literature. We do not think that these women can be put on the same level as some of the intellectuals, some of their counterparts, some of their contemporaries at the time. And there could be multiple reasons for them. And it's connected again to that cycle, right? Because we haven't known about them for a while, because we have all these gender stereotypes of what women can do, and because we haven't dedicated the time to research them, that was one big thing. So we just simply don't know the scope of the work that these women did. So those are like all the things that made us very, very, very angry, and we either were going to do something about it or we were going to stay angry. We decided to channel that anger into what later became a labor of love and passion. Another issue that we've noticed, what we're talking about, and this is a real picture and this book still do exist, are sold at a very famous bookstore chain, and they're called professions for boys, professions, occupations for girls. And that got us to think about all these stereotypes again that exist in the labor market, and outside of the labor market are socium at large, the social structure of it, right? Women can do this, girls can do that, boys can't do this, boys can't do that, and we thought that, okay, we're just talking about way too many things now, we need to take a path and concentrate on it. But we very soon realized that all these issues that we've noticed, the lack of women in the history and literature books, their absence from the cultural scene, these labor stereotypes, these ideas of what a successful person is or isn't, are all tied together. And we decided that our book can and will address all of these things at the same time. So in our book, next to historical women who've had an impact on our history, literature, culture, art, science, you will find contemporary women who here, today and right now, are challenging these stereotypes by doing what they believe in. we'll go over some of the women that we have and you'll see what we're talking about, but as a brief example, we have the horn players, a very male-dominated instrument in the Armenian music scene. We have a farmer who drives a tractor, and next to women like Zapeliasan and Zianabgar. And we've been challenged over it quite a few times, and we actually, very interestingly, have been challenged about that by the contemporary women that we wanted to feature. So every time we approached a woman and we said, okay, we're writing this book, can we write about you as well? The response was, are you writing my story next to Diana Abgar and Zapelia Sayan? And we've had that reaction from, and we've explained over and over again our philosophy, and still on March 21st, during the launch, one of the women featured in the book, Moldusan sisters' amazing work, approached us. They flipped the pages, they said, till the end, we didn't believe this is what you're doing. We can't believe we're in the same book as all of these women. And of course, it's a lot of modesty and humility from their end, but it's a point that we're trying to make. Now, sort of the more technical aspect of how everything started, right? Our inspiration behind the format of the book and what actually made us think that yes, we can do something about it is a book called Udna Stories for Rebel Girls, which is a similar format for a bit of a younger audience. We loved the format, and we all started from a text saying, there's an idea, let's do this. And as you can see, in the right corner at the very beginning, the project was called the Female Powerhouse of Armenia. We've evolved to Armenian Wonderwomen. We did a fundraising, we collected the money, we began the research process, which Elma will go over in detail. And then 4 years later, we realized that we need more support, and that's where we're extremely thankful to Garos Gulbenkian Foundation for believing in our mission, for understanding why this is important, for their immense support. And I know Kayane Matsunyan is connected through Zoom, and we want to take this moment to thank her and the whole team behind the foundation for their support. We wouldn't be here, the three versions wouldn't be here without their support. And to conclude, I want to read a segment from our preface that is our mission. Armenian Wonderwomen aims to shed light on figures who are excluded from our history and collective memory. Armenian Wonderwomen tells their stories to break the silence around them and to pay a long overdue tribute. Alongside stories about historical women, in Armenian Wonderwomen you will read about contemporary women too. Bringing the stories of the past, we aim to give voice to women today, here and now, and who keep on breaking stereotypes by doing what they love and believe in.
Okay, now I will try to talk. Now I will try to talk about the process of the creation of the book. So first of all, this question is something that I have been asking myself. I work at an IT company, I have not done any writing or anything. So sometimes I'm like, am I even eligible for being the co-author of a book like this? Granted, is a different topic because she has experience in writing books and she's also getting an relevant education. But when we started, we were just students, yes? And the point that I'm trying to get to is that the work that has been put into this is far, far beyond than just the two of us. It has been a huge support from Dr. Huri Gatarian and Dr. Melissa Pida, as well as lots of other historians, education specialists, psychologists, children's psychologists who have been helping us to make sure that the book is relevant for our target readership, as well as our family, our husbands, who have been helping us to stay grounded and not go crazy in the process of creating this. So the book is featuring 38 Armenian historical and contemporary women from diverse backgrounds. And it is available in 3 languages. In English, we started actually writing it in English, and then we translated into Eastern Armenian, and of course into Western Armenian. And the Western Armenian, doing the book also in Western Armenian was something that we have decided about the book, like one of the first things that we have come to, because it was very important of us to take this as an opportunity to represent a language that is so important for us as a nation, yet is being forgotten very often and not giving the credits that it deserves. Our target readership is 10 years older, 10 plus, and we say this for independent reading. However, if a parent or a guardian is reading for a child, then definitely someone younger can also get a lot from this book. And also, people who are adults can read this, get inspired, and learn a lot about women that do not get enough representation. We often hear the question of how did we choose the list of the women that we represented in the book. The short answer is it was pretty subjective. However, we try to represent all the messages that Dana has just been describing and try to give as diverse background of professions for our reader as possible so that they do not feel limited to gender stereotypes related to certain professions, as well as not to the limited pool that usually parents go to suggest their children. Yes, you can be a doctor, lawyer, that's it. Everything else is a failure. So hopefully this book will also showcase that it is not the case most of the time. And as we have mentioned that this book took us 4 years to write, and as all of us know, these 4 years have been very eventful, both for the world and for Armenia, having to deal with a global pandemic, with a war, and it made us question sometimes, is this book still relevant? And whenever we were raising this question, we didn't even come to have a debate because all of us together were sure that it is even more relevant now because the issues that we're seeing are greatly coming from the gender stereotypes that we have, and the cause that we're fighting for is not good just for women, it is good for the society, it is important for every one of us, even if you look at it economically, even if you look at it from the human rights perspective, equality, any possible way that you look at it. Am I taking the right button? I feel like I'm ready. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the research process. Why did it take us 4 years? Because, as it has been mentioned, we have been very detail-oriented, and we have been spending years and months and years to do research in archives, do interviews with biographers, family members of the historical women, as well as interviews with the contemporary women to make sure that everything is as correct and as precise, the information that we're giving, and even the literary or stylistic writing that we chose to do was historically and factually correct. And we did, as I said, months of fact-checking with lots of professionals, and we can now try to look into the examples to understand what that research process looked like. So this is actually a photograph from our book launch in March 21, and these are two stories, let's say. In the front you can see Roxana Petrosyan, who is a farmer, and is doing an amazing job of breaking the stereotypes in her village by driving a tractor and making the life for all the villagers much, much easier. And she's often using the money that she earns from this work in order to do community development. For example, she built a playground for the village, etc. She's a rock star. And the sister, Mokhtosian sisters, are in the background, artists that Ghana has referred to, again, very talented and amazing women. And what I'm trying to say is during the process of developing the stories, we have been meeting and interviewing every single one of the contemporary women and having to hear their stories firsthand, which was a beautiful experience and an actual honor to meet and get to know them ourselves. Now about the historical women. The historical women were very interesting to research and study, and also pretty challenging. For example, Anita Conti is an oceanographer. She was French-Armenian and lived in early 1900s. Finding information about her was pretty challenging because obviously lack of representation, and also most of the resources about her were in French, which we do not know. So I was looking at one of the videos that the French television made about her that was like a very short, brief story, and I spotted a man who was talking about her who turned out to be Anita Conti's adopted son, Laurent Conti. And I just looked him up on Facebook. I found him, sent him a request, pitched the book idea, and said, "Can you please do an interview with us?" I even used Google Translator to write the message. It was pretty bad. But then he very kindly, unsurprisingly agreed to help us. And again, like, I don't know French and he doesn't know English. How do we do this? I remembered that my husband's cousin lives in France and knows French. I haven't even met him actually. And I asked him, like, will you do translations for an interview for a stranger? He said, yeah, sure. So here I am with Laurent and Edgar talking about this Wonder Woman, Anita Conti, and he not only was kind enough to share the life story of this amazing woman and share some of the facts that literally all of us should know and study in schools, be it in science, history, or art, because this woman did many, many amazing things. But he also was kind enough to send literally all the archives that he had from Anita Conti. So as you can see on the very top, he sent her documents, her like sketches, her drawings, anything that she had. Over here, which is like probably 100 of the photographs that she has taken during her explorations in the oceans. He shared some of these photos, which like are ginormous archives. And he also shared the items that belonged to Anita Conti, and he was wonderful enough to preserve them so greatly. And he like shared the photographs. So yeah, he was an amazing help, as you can tell. I don't know, we were thinking of also doing some reading sessions. I don't know if that would be interesting, but we can try to read Anita Conti's story so that kind of connects the dots. Okay. So the way we'll do this is I'll read the story in Eastern Armenian, then Dana will read another one in Western Armenian. So, okay, here we go. Անիտա Կարագուչյան Կոնտին 1989 թվականից 1997 թվական Օվկիանոսագետ Գրեթե մեկ տարի առաջ ալեկոծված ծովերի քաոսում փոթորկած ալիքների դեմ կռվող նավաստիներով լի նավի վրա լսելի էր կանացի մի ձայն, որ ուղղություն էր տալիս նավի անձնակազմին և առաջնորդում նավարկության ընթացքը։ Պատահական չէ, որ մարդիկ նրանք ընկել էին ծովի տիկին։ Այդ կոչման հետևում Սակայն Անիտան էր աշխարհի առաջին կին օվկիանոսագետը, ով առաջամարտիկ էր դառնալու մի շարք ասպարեզներում։ Անիտան հասարակ է եղել Ֆրանսիայի արևմուտքում ընկած փոքրիկ Օլերոն կղզու ափերին։ Նրա սիրելի զբաղմունքը ծովի ափին ժամանակ անցկացնելն էր։ Վերցնում էր ծնողների նվիրած տեսախցիկն ու սկսում լուսանկարել այն ամենը, ինչ իր մոտ հարցեր է առաջացնում։ Իսկ այդ հարցերի քանակը հավատացեք, քիչ չէր։ Ինչպիսին է ստորջրյա աշխարհը, ինչ է կատարվում ծովային հատվածներում, որոնք ափից տեսանելի չեն, անհայտ ամեն բան գրավում էր Անիտայի ուշադրությունը, բերելով մի շարք համարձակ որոշման։ Նա որոշում է օվկիանոսագետ դառնալ, ուսումնասիրելու էկոհամակարգերը, ձկներին, ալիքները և ստորջրյա կյանքի առեղծվածները։ Եվ այն ճանապարհորդությունը, որ անցնում է Անիտան, բառերով արտահայտել հնարավոր չէ։ Նրա նվաճումներն անգամ մերօրյա տեխնիկական հնարավորությունների պայմաններում են անհավատալի թվում։ Նախ սկսենք նրանից, որ մեր համարձակ օվկիանոսագետը որոշում է իր մասնագիտական ուղին սկսել Երկրորդ համաշխարհային պատերազմի ժամանակ։ Անիտան դառնում է պատերազմական վիճակում ֆրանսիական ռազմանավի վրա աշխատող առաջին կինը, ստանձնելով կարևորագույն առաքելությունների ղեկավարումը։ Նա փրկում է անհամար կյանքեր պատերազմի ընթացքում։ Անիտան առաջին կինն էր, ով ռազմանավերի ականազերծման գործողություններ ղեկավարում։ Ծովերի նեղուցում և Բարենցի ծովում աշխատանքները ստացվում են հաջողությամբ։ Մատուցած այս ծառայությունն այլ կերպ, քան ուշագրավ չէ Սամբանի։ Անիտան նաև ստեղծում է ձկնորսական քարտեզներ, որոնք օգնում են մարդկանց անվտանգ ճանապարհով ուտելիք գտնել։ Պատերազմի ժամանակ այդ քարտեզներն առանցքային են դառնում Արևմտյան Աֆրիկայի ափին սոված բանակին և բնակչությանը կերակրելու համար։ Թե պատերազմի ընթացքում, թե դրանից հետո Անիտան ամիսներ, տարիներ է անցկացնում ծովում և առանց չափազանցության կտրել անցել է աշխարհի բոլոր օվկիանոսներն ու մայրցամաքները։ Խաղաղության հաստատումից հետո Անիտան սկսում է գիտական ուսումնասիրություններ իրականացնել։ Ձեռքն է առնում իր սիրելի տեսախցիկն ու փաստագրում կյանքը ծովի վրա։ Անիտան նաև առաջիններից էր, ով խոսում է օվկիանոսին սպառնացող աղտոտվածության և ձկների գերոսի արդյունքում ծագող բնապահպանական խնդիրների մասին։ Այդ խնդիրները մինչև այսօր էլ սպառնում են մեր մոլորակի գոյությանը։ Նա զգուշացում էր, որ երբ մարդիկ մեծ քանակությամբ ձուկ են որսում, ժամանակ չեն թողնում ձկնատեսակների քանակի վերականգնման համար։ Արդյունքում շատ տեսակներ բնաջնջվում են եւ հասարակաշռության խախտումից տուժում են ողջ ծովային էկոհամակարգերն ու մոլորակը։ Իր ողջ կյանքի ընթացքում Անիտան հավաքագրել է ավելի քան 40,000 լուսանկար աշխարհի տարբեր ծայրերից։ Իսկի նշանավորում օվկիանոսագիտության ոլորտում ունեցած հսկայական ներդրմանը Ֆրանսիայում նրան անունով դպրոցներ են գործում։ Իսկ ծովի առեղծվածներից ո՞րն է քեզ գրավում։ Ուրեմն նաև կուզեմ պատմել մեկ այլ կնոջ
Switch to English.
Switch to English. Ով եղել է ավտոմրցաշավորդ ու
English.
Oh, sorry. Yes, press 1 for English. Yes, this other woman, Wonder Woman, Luisa Texia, who was a car racer and also one of the first businesswomen in France who introduced jeans to wear for women. So another Wonder Woman herself. And in her case, we managed to look up her biographer, and when we were writing about her, in fact, she was even alive. However, unfortunately, due to health issues, she was not able to remember many things. So her biographer was a great help when researching her. And here, this is probably my favorite photo of her. She did her last race in Kenya when she was 80 years old. Like, can you please imagine that? Okay, and when talking with her biographer, it was actually mind-blowing to learn about her journey during the genocide, the way she, like, we even have the information about the route of every single stop she and her family made when escaping from Turkey to France in her case, and her sister ended up in Bulgaria, and they lost touch, etc. And this is actually the school, yes, the Protestant, which is actually founded by another Wonder Woman we have featured in the book. And this is actually her circled in yellow as a photograph from that school. And it was actually very much later that we found out, actually after writing the story, that she has been an orphan in that orphanage that was founded by Yes. Now I think I will, give to Gayane.
Another story that we wanted to share with you that is truly mind-blowing and shows sort of both the scope of the research we've done and also those like little things that kept happening and working our way that we got to explore these wonderful women. One of them is Khatun Chavushia Pujan. We heard her name at an event that again took place here at AUA during Armenian Women. We knew she was a Fidai, and we thought we wanted to include Fidai to show that part of our history where also women were a part of. So her name was in our list, but when we started doing the research, we came to realize that there's very limited, almost zero information about her. The only thing that we could find about her was a link from the Genocide Institute, very brief information, one photograph, the photograph that you can see here. But with some weird twist of fate, it just so happened that we did the illustration before we started the research. And this is very key to know because the illustration that you see that made to the book was our absolute favorite. The illustration existed, we didn't have any information about this woman, and it was sort of a matter of principle for us to publish a story that is full of historically accurate information. We didn't want to manufacture anything. Even the creative licenses that we took had historical basis. And then we said, okay, we have to leave Khatun out of it because we simply do not have enough information. And I said, okay, one last try. I write a message to a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Robert Sukasyan, who's an archival whiz who just knows his way around the archives. He's a genocide studies scholar. So I said, okay, if there's one person that can help us, it's Robert. So I write him, I said, Robert, we have this name, we've tried with all different spellings, because as we've come to realize, that's a very important question when you research these women, how their names are spelled. We've tried with every possible way, no information. A day later, Robert comes back to me, and he says, okay, I found Khatun's husband. I know that his husband ended up in the United States. He found the entry petition for naturalization, or the citizenship agreement at the time when he entered the United States. So he finds all this information, and we get this last name. We now have Bazaryan. We all have this information now. We were very excited. We write in our chat to Hurig and Melissa. We say, okay, we have a lead. Truly detective work at the time. We have a lead. Can we do something with this? And Melissa starts doing her magic, and she talks to her partner, Harutun, and Harut tries looking at this like closed archives that he has. And at the same time, Robert is trying to look for information. Lo and behold, we find Khatun. And not only do we find Khatun, we find Khatun's grandchildren. And what happens is that Robert and Harutun together unearth this huge archive of Khatun Çavuşyapucan. We find a book that details every single thing that she went through. We read how this woman, and I apologize for the graphic details, but she stayed for days and weeks under dead bodies to escape the massacres, to try to avoid. She was a wanted person, dead or alive, and we read these horrific details about her, and then we see this photo. We see Khatun holding a squash, and the article about her is that Mrs. Khatun Bazaryan, and this is actually how we found her, the last name, displays 2 water squash ground in the yard of her Fresno home. The largest measured 43 inches. And we're just mind blown. Is this the Khatun that we read about? For a moment we didn't believe it, because we keep reading these things that this woman went through, and then they're like, oh, this lovely lady who grows squash. And Robert keeps doing his magic, and he finds an article by Khatun's grandson who mentions his grandmother's kebab, which is an award-winning recipe that he learned from his grandmother, and he details all these things in that article. We know his name is John Kaputan, I'm sorry. I find him on Facebook, again, Facebook was the sponsor of our research apparently. I find him on Facebook, I write to him, I say, I know this is extremely random, but we found your grandmother, can you talk to us? At the same time, Robert again is on his magic. He finds Khatun's granddaughter, who's another Wonder Woman, who's an inventor, an innovator, and then he connects us with his sister, and you can see a screenshot from our sort of call together. And to this day, I remember the sentence that they said. They said, yes, Khatun Tadik, and she would say that there's one sentence that they said that she kept saying every time they visited her. She would say Hakit Kuzes, and that sentence is ingrained in my mind and I couldn't still believe, I couldn't put the two together of what this woman went through. And when we asked her, did you know about her? They said no. Not until very, very late in her life did we find out the horrors that our grandmother went through. And again, you can see a photo on the right. It's from their personal archives that, again, they were very kind enough to share with us. So we sort of start putting this together, and all with the help of our wonderful Harut, Melissa, and Robert. And I have to plug Rob here in. He has a wonderful talk here on April 27 at 12 at Small Auditorium. We'll be talking about his archival research, so please don't miss it. And I want this title. To Fresno, she was a kindly grandmother. Turks knew another Hatun. And that sentence to me and to us was Khatun. And that just perfectly described. And we wanted to make it into the story, but we just realized that this sentence has to stay as it is. It has to, we couldn't add it into the story, but we again unearthed more information about her, and we found this article from an AGBU newspaper that caught our eye with, again, the photo of Khatun, and the very last sentence that says Pati Bhaiga Kanseri. And we knew this segment had to make it to the book. Another thing that I want to bring to your attention to is how her name is spelled. We tried with Khat, but it turned out that when she moved to the US, she became Haton, and that's why. And that's not one of the spellings that we thought would be to try. But fortunately, we were able to track her husband and find it. So why we're telling you all of this is to understand first the depth of research, but also how hard it is to then write a page-long story to pick and choose all these details that make to the story, because these women were not one thing. These women didn't do one thing. They did multiple things. They had multiple layers to them, and we had to summarize it to a page, make it accessible to a 10-year-old, and at the same time maintain the scope of what they've done. So I want to read you Khatun's story, and I'll read it in Western Armenian because it's special that way. Shahidun just support. I know Shahid has done such a great work that even though I might not read it in a good way, it still will be very magical. So and I did translate my very first segment from Eastern Armenian to Western Armenian yesterday, so I'm feeling very confident about my Western Armenian skills at this point. Khatun Yapujan, Fitայի եւ Որփախույզ 1919-ի ամառվան վերջին օրերն էին։ Հայ բարեգործական ընդհանուր միության պաշտոնաթերթը Գահիդեի մեջ կհաղորդեր վերջին կարևոր իրադարձությունները։ Շատ մահարումներով սովորական թիվն ուներ, բայց 51-րդ էջին վրա հատուկ գրություն կսպասեր ընթերցողներուն։ Ֆնդեջակցի հերոսուի Խաթուն Չավուշ մակիկիրը գրող լուսանկարի քովին հոդվածի մեջ գրված էր. Հպարտությամբ վեր կհանենք ֆնդեջակցի հերոսուհիմը, Խաթուն Չավուշի զմայլելի դեպքը, որոնց պատկերը կարտագրենք այս թիվին մեջ։ Հիշյալը մասնակցած է 1915-ի ֆնդեջակի մակարոններուն, տարագրության շրջանին գտնված է Համա եւ Հոմս. If you know anything about Armenian genocide, you know that that was one of the most horrible places to be at the time. Եվ զինադադարեն հետո հաջողված ազատագրել ավելի քան 400 բնագրաված հայուհիներ, պատիվ հայ իգական սերուն։ Ֆնդեջակը Մարաշեն 22 կիլոմետր հեռու գտնվող գյուղն էր, 2000-ն ավելի հայերու հայրենի գյուղը։ 1915-ին երկոսմենյան բանակը կհարձակվի գյուղին վրա, գյուղացիները եւ անոնց մեջ 17 տարեկան Խաթուն Յապուջանը կորոշեն դիմադրել զորքին։ Հայոց ցեղասպանության զորք երթա Խաթունի ընտանիքի մեծ մասը, ներառյալ իր երկու քույրիկները։ Խաթունին համար ապրելը շատ դժվար բան էր, բայց գիտեր, որ պետք էր ինքզինք համու բայր թե ինքզինքին, թե իր սիրած անձերուն համար։ Ան միացավ գյուղին պաշտպանական ուժերով, որպեսզի գրվի հանուն իր գյուղին։ Ավելի քան 500 մարդիկներ, որոնց մեջ Խաթունը մինչև վերջ դիմադրեցին։ Ֆիզը կռիվը նպաստ իրենց էր, բայց թշնամին ավելի մեծ թիվով զենք զինամթերք ուներ եւ ի վերջո գրավեց գյուղը։ Գրիվը պատրել է յետք, Խաթունը շատ շատերի հետ տեղահան եղավ։ Միայն իր ուժերին բերումով չէ, որ Խաթունը զարմանահրաշ կին մներ, ան նաև բարի էր եւ քաջ։ Ան որոնողական գործողություններ կատարած էր, որպեսզի օժանդակեր ցեղասպանության ատեն արևանգված հայ մանուկներ գտնելուն։ Խաթունին շնորհիվ բազմաթիվ մանուկներ գտնված եւ վերագտած են իրենց ընտանիքներում։ 1918-ին Խաթունը կվերադառնա իր հայրենի գյուղը։ Գրեթե անմիջապես հետո նոր հարձակումը տեղի կունենա գյուղին վրա։ Խաթունը նորեն կմիանա ֆիտայիներուն պաշտպանելու իր հայրենի տունը։ Ան նաև կգործեի նպաստ հատուկ պատասպարանիմը, ու գերություններ փրկված հայկիները ապաստան կգտնեին։ Շրջափակված գյուղը 3 շաբաթ կդիմադրե, բայց թուրքական ուժերը կհաջողվին հրոյ ճարակը դարձնել ամբողջ գյուղը։ Իսկ Խաթունի գլխուն համար փրկագին կար, ողջ թե մեռած։ Խաթունը ստիպված էր փախչելու։ Ձեր կգտնե հասնելու Հալեբ, ապա կփախչի ԱՄՆ, ուր կամուսնանա եւ զավակներ կունենա։ Խաթուն Յապուջյանը հերոսության խորհրդանիշ է։ Իր քաջության, իր ժողովրդին հանդեպ իննովինումին եւ անարդարության դեմի պայքարին համար արժանացած է Չավուշ տասնապետ Տիտխոսին։ Հակառակ բոլոր զրկանքներուն, դժվարություններուն, հակառակ վախին եւ անորոշության, Խաթուն Չավուշ Յապուջյանը երբեք չհանձնվեցավ։ Եթե Խաթուն Չավուշին հանդիպելու առիթ ունենայիր, ինչ պիտի հարցնեիր իրեն։
Okay. Well, as we have already mentioned, the book is also available like in 3 languages. We have initially started writing the book in English and then translated the stories into Eastern Armenian and Western Armenian. And as Gana mentioned, it was a big challenge to fit all of this information into one page. And thanks to the huge help of our amazing support and translators, we have been able to also keep the magic of the stories in the translations that we have been aiming to represent in the English. Now, as you put already guessed, we have pretty big archives at this point, and the last thing that we want to wish someone who is going to research these women is going through the challenges and the years and the months that we took to find some interesting information that should be available. So for that reason, we have been also working on developing Armenian Wonderwomen website, where we would showcase and represent the research that we have done. It's still a work in progress, and the amount of archives that we have now is a lot more, and with everything else going on, it really takes us time to put it on the website, but we're getting there. So if you're interested in it, you can visit armenianwonderwomen.com to find more information and images.
And to sort of sum up the 4 years to look into a future of where we're going next. Quite literally, where we're going next is we're going to the regions of Armenia to present the book. We'll be visiting some of the Mars's schools, local libraries, any clubs where children are and educators are, to talk about the book, to present the book, to talk about them, to get their insights. And for this purpose and more, we've created a teacher's guide, because when we were working on the stories, when we were reading the stories, we realized that these stories aren't just source of information, but each story has a sub-theme. In one story, we're talking about inclusion. In another story, we're talking about environmental footprint. In another story, we're talking about human rights. All of these are very relevant and important issues that are open hard to talk to the kids about them, and we've thought that our stories can also become a tool to not only get to know these women, but also explore all of these concepts to them. So that's why we developed the teacher's guide, educator's guide, anyone who works with children to, and it includes sort of group work suggestions, questions, anything to facilitate the discussion around those topics. Our next step is that we're very lucky enough to receive also a generous donation to print the English version of the book that isn't printed yet, so by the end of spring, hopefully we'll also have the English version. We're very happy to say that what you see here are the very last copies of the Eastern Armenian version, so if you want to get yours, hurry up. The print run of the Eastern Armenian is over. And of course, our next step is to send copies to diaspora communities, because we believe that it's extremely important that specifically the Western Armenian version, because we want to keep that first, and then if the language isn't in the family or they don't know it anymore, then the English for the content. So we've already started working on it. The books will make it their way to the diaspora communities. If anyone has any sort of must-send places that it needs to go to, please do let us know. The very first place that it's going to the 14 schools in Beirut at the moment, and then from then on we'll continue sending them. And what I want to end on is something that my dad shared with me when I gave him the copy to read. Actually, he grabbed it and read it without asking. Is his thoughts on the Sipri Dusab story. It's the very first story in the book, so he opens, he reads it, and prior to him reading the story, we were talking about a friend of ours that was going through this situation, and I kept saying, oh my God, is it the 19th century? It was like a very difficult thing in terms of women's rights that they were going through, and I was very surprised that it's still happening, and I kept just being surprised. My dad picks up the book and took this photo at the very second that he was reading it, and then after I take the photo, he turns around and he says, and I laughed at it because it was very funny what he said, but then I took a moment and then I realized this Sipri Dusab specifically fought for women's rights in the 19th century, late 19th, early 20th century. This day, contemporary day, 21st century Yerevan, we're talking about the very same situation. And when he said Dusab, they're living at Dusab's times, it really sort of, and I shared this story with everyone, with Wig and Melissa, and I said, like, this is what my dad said, and we just sort of reflected on it collectively of how not only is this book relevant, and I'm not saying this because we wrote it, it's a must, because it's, what Hurik said that it's going to take us 300 years. These women have fought that fight 200 years ago, and we for some reason refuse to acknowledge the progress that they've done, and partly because maybe we don't know. We don't know that this has already been done. It may sound a bit funny, but I do think that if we learn more about the fights that have been fought and the price these women paid to fight that fight, we'll be a lot more understanding of the issues. So that's sort of another reminder for us of why this book is so important. So thank you very much. This is sort of our information of where you can find us. The book is of course available for sale. As I said, the Eastern Armenian version is nearly over. What you see here are our very last copies. So feel free to message us not only about the book, but also if you catch any typos, if you read it to a kid in your life or not just kids, and they have a feedback, please, we're very receptive of it, and we want to integrate your opinions in our book. And of course, you can find us on all social media platforms, and the book is also, some copies may still be left at Epigraph bookstore chain. And we're open to questions if you should have. Yes?
A little clip.
Oh, the clip, right. It's just about an hour ago, just 15 minutes ago before we started the event, we received this video that I want to show us, and I want to say that this is a public video posted by an Instagram blogger, so we do have the rights to show this to you.
Անուններն ասել, Սրբուի, Սավ, Վահան,
Բայց մյուսը որ կարդացիք է մյուս կինը։
մենք երեք կին ենք։
Հա, իսկ ինչի համար են իրանք պայքարում ամենաշատը։
Կանանց,
Որ ինչ լինի կանանց համար։
դպրոց հաճախել,
Էլ ինչ անեն։
տանը վարապ չից։ Իսկ
We have to say it's truly, it was scary at first letting the book go out there because you keep it for 4 years, you read it on your own, and then it's terrifying when it goes out there and people start reading it, but the response that we received so far is overwhelmingly positive, and we hope it continues that way. But if you have any questions about the book, the project, the research process, we're very, very happy to answer them. An official announcement that the AUA library will be donating a copy of Eastern and Western Armenian, so you can always go right from the library to explore, just as an information. Any questions?
Not a question, but just kind of a comment. As a child, I was really keen on. So when I was little, I was really keen on reading books. So I would read the Armenian literature, and the question that I always had within myself, and I would ask like my mom, like, why are there no women represented here? Like even as a child, I felt there was something wrong out there, and I really seeked out like a role model to kind of picture myself through the fictional characters, let's say. And what you're doing now is just extremely incredible. I wish I was like 5 again so that I could have a book like this and read and get inspired, and the children that are going to read this will see themselves within these people, and they're not fictional characters, they're real people, so it makes it even powerful. So congratulations, this is amazing.
I have to copy my instructors when they said either we said everything perfectly or you didn't understand anything. It really feels like that.
When's the sequel?
Another 4 years.
Before that.
Hopefully not. hopefully not, but it really did take us a while to do all of this, and we want to keep up with the quality and with everything that we've done. So for the record, I want to say that we both have at least like 4 full-time jobs at the same time. So it's really, this has been the escape for us in a way, and we're just talking about how this book just keeps pushing us out of our comfort zone in terms of everything. Like go talk to these strange people, to the sales things, to the administrative things, but it had also in an interesting way become a comfort zone, and we would turn to it whenever everything felt strange and out of our control. We knew there are Armenian Wonderwomen, and there are Wonderwomen with whom we're working on Armenian Wonderwomen, and it all just came together again. So to answer soon.
Just a quick question. Where will the English version be printed? Will it be printed here?
Here, the same printing company that helped us with this Western and Eastern Armenian.
So you said that your selections of who you were going to write about was very subjective. You must have a lot of women that you had to wait for the second, that will be in the second edition. Is there a big file of?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Huge file.
Yeah. So it's not that we have not had Armenian Wonderwomen. We've had millions of, well, maybe not millions, but throughout time, there's plenty of sources. So anyway, good luck with you have the recipe now. Like I think you have figured out the model. I know, I can imagine how much work it's been, but you have the model, so keep going.
It's such a pity because so many discoveries that we have made were post factum. Okay.
Sorry, just for the viewers, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually many of the discoveries that we have made were post factum, which was kind of a pity, but also a motivation to continue the work. Actually, I forgot to mention that even after the book launch, when we gave the actual copies to the contemporary women, it turned out that the whole players and the soccer referee that are in the book were classmates. They didn't even know about they were going to find one another. And this is about contemporary women. Imagine how much was being discovered, and to this moment is being discovered about the historical ones.
Right.
And part of those discoveries were a huge list of new women that we ought to know and discover again. So hopefully in a sequel or in one way or another, we'll be able to feature them.
I have a bit of a question. Since you mentioned the historical women, how far back were you able to go in terms of was the author? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name, but the late 19th century author and feminist, was she the earliest in the book, or because I'm imagining, of course, that there were 18th century Armenian Wonderwomen, and 17th century and 16th century, and going back further and further. But I'm sure that when you go back further and further, it's a lot harder to do the research. So.
The latest is, you're right, it's Serpui Tusap, who was born in 1841, but as a matter of fact, Serpui Tusap's own mother deserved a story of her own, and she is mentioned in the book as Serpui Tusap's mother, Nazmi Bahan, who of course was an even earlier figure, and there are earlier, but I think there was even a conversation to sort of look through the queens that we've had in our history to see what their heritage was like. But because of, again, the limited time, we've decided to start from Serpui Tusap, move forward, and then of course we keep looking back, and you're absolutely right, 17th, 18th, mid-centuries, we do have those women, and it is harder, but again, we're greatly indebted to all the amazing historians who've already done quite a lot of work. And the specific reason why we decided to talk about Anita Conti and Khatun Çavuşyakucan is that we did those steps on our own, and we reached to those on our own, and there's again some women there that we were one of the first people to sort of look at their trajectory. But I mean, Pine Harian was here a couple of weeks ago talking about, she didn't talk about that specific research, but she's also done amazing work in researching these women. So there is work done, there's some work to be done. chat, Rudy. Do we have questions in the chat? No?
Can I just say something?
Of course.
Just as important, is it working? I can't tell.
Yeah.
Just as important as it is, I can't speak today, it's been a long day, sorry, for women to have these role models, and because we don't, and you guys were talking about streets and statues, think about all the statues in Yerevan. There's Mein Hayastan, it's always an unnamed woman, right? There isn't my queen, and it's always in that context. But as important it is for women to have these role models, I'm so excited to take the book home and read it to my 3 grandsons, because it's equally important for the boys to see this as well. We oftentimes forget that. So I just really, really want to thank you both, and I know your professors have been incredible in helping you in this journey, and I'm just so proud to have had you as my students, and I can't wait for the sequels, as Suzanne says, because this has to be like an encyclopedia.
Yes.
So congratulations, no questions.
Actually, it is, and when thinking about the cover and the overall messaging, that was one thing. Like the Goodnight Stories, it's called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls, and we've taken issue with that phrasing of that book, that it instantly targets girls, and we wanted, both in terms of the cover and the messaging, to make sure that this is not a book for girls. And we've been told by marketing executives that, oh, what a wonderful thing you're doing for girls. And even now, as we're thinking about it in terms of marketing, we want to engage more male voices of promoting the book, just to show that this is our history. This is not, as much as I can be inspired from a male figure can be inspired by a female figure, and vice versa. It's about the achievements rather than gender and the sex. So thank you for bringing it up. It is an absolute must, and we look forward to hearing your grandsons' feedback on what they think about this women.
That's very exciting.
Great. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all of you. Of course, I want to thank Anne and Elma, and I again want to thank my colleagues Dean Mekonian and Dr. Khalafyan for organizing this series, so that we do hear these stories in a very, very different medium and have the chance to converse together. So, and again, I want to thank Gan and Elma's incredible energy and the passion that you could see there, and the work that they have done, and how their work builds on a lot of academic and scholarly work of also people who are in this room and are on Zoom joining us. And to see this intergenerational transmission is something to behold, really. And this is inspiration, this is hope. And let us continue the rest of the conversation over a glass of wine, and enjoy talking to Diane and Elma more, and peruse the books.